Lakers Nation, let's dive into what might be the most ambitious trade scenario in NBA history. The possibility of Nikola Jokic, the three-time MVP, joining forces with Luka Doncic in Los Angeles. Before you start planning championship parades, let's examine the realistic chances of this basketball fever dream actually becoming reality. Dan Woik from The Athletic recently addressed this exact question, and his response was about as cold as a December night in Denver. When asked whether Giannis Antetokounmpo or Nikola Jokic could be realistic trade targets, Woik didn't mince words. The chances are essentially non-existent unless the market gets completely suppressed by a player publicly demanding to join the Lakers. But here's where things get interesting from a pure basketball perspective. The idea of pairing Jokic with Luka Doncic represents perhaps the most tantalizing offensive combination imaginable. We're talking about two of the most basketball-intelligent players in NBA history, both capable of orchestrating offense at an elite level while contributing significantly in other areas. Jokic's passing ability combined with Doncic's scoring and playmaking would create offensive possibilities that opposing defenses would struggle to contain. The Serbian center's ability to facilitate from the post and high post areas, combined with Doncic's perimeter creation and court vision, could produce the most dynamic offensive attack in NBA history. The friendship between Jokic and Doncic adds an intriguing subplot to this entire scenario. These aren't just two superstars who might complement each other on the court. They're genuinely close friends who have expressed mutual admiration and respect throughout their careers. Personal relationships often play significant roles in player movement, and their bond could potentially influence future decisions. From Denver's perspective, the organizational commitment to building around Jokic has been impressive, but not without challenges. The Nuggets have made significant roster moves this offseason, including distributing some problematic contracts and bringing in complementary pieces like Cam Johnson and Jonas Valanciunas. They've clearly demonstrated their commitment to surrounding their franchise player with quality talent. However, the window for championship contention is always finite, even for a player as transcendent as Jokic. If the Nuggets struggle to maintain competitive rosters or fail to capitalize on Jokic's prime years, the three-time MVP might start considering other options. Players of his caliber don't want to waste their peak seasons on teams that can't compete for championships. The contractual situation adds another layer of complexity to this potential scenario. Jokic declined a contract extension this offseason, though he still has 2 years plus a player option remaining on his current deal. While this is an immediate concern, it does create some uncertainty about his long-term commitment to Denver, especially if the team's competitive trajectory doesn't meet his expectations. For the Lakers, acquiring a player of Jokic's caliber would represent the ultimate franchise-altering move, with new ownership potentially willing to spend aggressively. The financial resources might be available to make the type of massive trade package that would be required to pry Jokic away from Denver. But let's be realistic about what such a trade would require. We're talking about a three-time MVP who's still in his prime years. The Lakers would likely need to offer their entire future draft capital, multiple young players, and probably some combination of current roster contributors. The price would be astronomical, potentially mortgage the future expensive. The roster construction implications are fascinating to consider. Jokic and Doncic together would create matchup nightmares for opposing teams, but the Lakers would need to surround them with complementary pieces that maximize their strengths while covering their defensive limitations. Building the right supporting cast around two ball-dominant creators requires careful planning and significant resources. Defensively, this pairing would present some interesting challenges. While both players have improved their defensive impact over the years, neither is considered an elite defender. The Lakers would need to construct their roster carefully to ensure adequate defensive support, particularly in the front court and on the perimeter. The timeline considerations are equally important. Both Jokic and Doncic are entering their prime years, meaning their championship window together could be substantial. For an organization like the Lakers, which has historically been willing to make aggressive moves for elite talent, the opportunity to pair two generational players might be too tempting to pass up. However, the practical obstacles to this trade are enormous. Denver has no incentive to trade away their franchise cornerstone unless Jokic specifically demands a trade, which seems highly unlikely given his personality and commitment to the organization. The Nuggets have invested heavily in building around him, and appear committed to maximizing his championship window. The competitive implications of this hypothetical pairing would be staggering. A Lakers team featuring Jokic and Doncic would immediately become championship favorites, potentially creating a dynasty-level core that could dominate the league for years. The offensive creativity and basketball IQ of these two players combined would be virtually unstoppable. From a league-wide perspective, this type of superstar consolidation would reshape the entire competitive landscape. Other contending teams would need to respond with their own aggressive moves, potentially triggering a series of blockbuster trades and roster overhauls throughout the NBA. The fan and media reaction would be unprecedented. Lakers fans would be ecstatic about adding another generational talent, while Nuggets fans would be devastated to lose their beloved franchise player. The storylines and narratives would dominate basketball coverage for months. But perhaps most importantly, we need to consider Jokic's own preferences and priorities. The Serbian center has consistently expressed satisfaction with Denver and appears genuinely committed to bringing a championship to the city. Unless the Nuggets' competitive situation deteriorates significantly, there's little reason to believe he would push for a trade. The financial implications would also be massive. Jokic's contract, combined with Doncic's maximum extension, would consume a significant portion of the salary cap. The Lakers would need to be incredibly strategic about filling out the rest of their roster with value contracts and minimum salary players. So what's the realistic assessment of this dream scenario? While the basketball fit will be incredible and the championship potential enormous, the practical obstacles make this trade extremely unlikely. Denver has no reason to trade Jokic unless he specifically requests it, and the Lakers probably don't have enough assets to make a competitive offer even if he became available. Still, in a league where player movement has become increasingly common and superstars are more willing to force their way to preferred destinations, we can never completely rule out seemingly impossible scenarios. The friendship between Jokic and Doncic, combined with the Lakers' resources and championship pedigree, creates at least a theoretical possibility for this basketball fantasy to become reality. What do you think, Lakers fans? Is this the type of move that could define the next decade of NBA basketball, or are we just indulging in unrealistic wishful thinking? The implications would certainly be fascinating to watch unfold.